Is Lex Fridman a fraud? On the surface, Lex Fridman presents himself as a modern-day genius, a man long associated with MIT, the world's most prestigious university, who now runs one of the most popular podcasts on the planet, pulling in millions of listeners every month, and landing guests that range from the titans of tech to some of the world's most powerful political leaders. But scratch beneath the surface and the story gets murkier. Behind the carefully crafted image lies a man surrounded by glaring inconsistencies and unanswered questions.
You don't have anything worthy to say? Shut the F up. You see these glasses that I wear? These glasses of mine are substantially smarter than Lex.
From doubts about his academic background,
does anyone know why? What? Is there anything they've done? No, truly, because all they do is talk. Is there anything they've built? Is there one appliance that they have anything to do with?
to suspicions as his role as a so-called neutral advocate for peace.
Lex Fridman is so devoid of actual intelligence, it's insane. Guy's like a Israeli automaton golem.
And if these allegations hold any truth, Lex Fridman could be exposed as the biggest fraud in the podcasting world, who built his entire empire on lies and deception. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we're taking a closer look at Lex Fridman, how he potentially fooled the entire world into believing that he was a trustworthy genius, how he hides behind neutrality to push his own agendas, and why part of the internet believes he might even be a spy. But if you want to clear your name, make sure you subscribe so I know you're not a spy. And let's get on with the video. For those who aren't very familiar with Lex, here's a super quick breakdown of his academic and professional background. Alexei Lex Fridman is a Jewish Russian-American whose family moved to the US after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There, Lex received both his bachelor's and master's degree in computer science at Drexel University in Philadelphia. He continued at Drexel for his PhD in electrical and computer engineering as well, which he completed in 2014. From there, he briefly worked at Google as a visiting research engineer. Then, in 2015, moved to MIT's Age Lab, where his work focused on algorithms for semi-autonomous vehicles like Tesla's self-driving software, before moving once again in 2019 to MIT's Laboratory for Information and Decision Systems as a research scientist. However, the thing he's most well known for on the internet is his podcast, which he started in April 2018, though it wasn't until his April 2019 episode with Elon Musk that he exploded into mainstream popularity. Since then, he's uploaded videos with many high-profile guests, from Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson to Richard Dawkins, Donald Trump, and many more. But behind all of his shining achievements, there's a sketchy pattern of dishonesty, all of which came to light when the YouTuber Ghost Gum released an investigative video on Lex, exposing the many lies he's used to craft the image that he shows to the world.
But the more I look into this man, the more I realize that almost everything he does is deceptive, embellished, or just a flat-out lie.
And the first red flag he pointed out had to do with how he presents his academic background. You see, despite earning not one, but 3 degrees from Drexel University, including a PhD, Lex almost never mentions the institution publicly, even on his personal website, where he happily shares details like his hobbies. Drexel is nowhere to be found. On the other hand, he never misses an opportunity to bring up his connection with MIT.
Thousands of world-class biologists, actually. So at MIT, colleagues of mine, people I know. When I walk the halls of MIT, at MIT, what do you think my position of vaccines is exactly?
From his Google Scholar profile to his LinkedIn and even Facebook. Wherever his name appears, MIT is mentioned right alongside it, despite the fact he never even studied there. Now, this selective branding might not seem suspicious at a first glance. After all, why wouldn't he list working at such a highly respected institution as part of his achievements? But the problem is that Lex's role at MIT is far less important important than he makes it out to be. He isn't a professor or even a substitute. His title of research scientist is one of the lowest academic positions and is not even considered a part of the official MIT faculty. In other words, he holds no real influence on the campus and he has no direct relevance to any MIT student. But that hasn't stopped him from repeatedly implying that he has taught students at MIT.
As a research scientist at MIT, I've had, and especially just part of a large set of collaborations, I've had a lot of students come to me and talk to me about ideas.
When in reality, his only teaching experience comes from IAP sessions, which are informal classes that literally anyone can teach or attend. And this is where things go from deceptive to highly unethical. The thing is, by bringing up MIT's name again and again, Lex has built a false aura of authority around himself. To the average viewer who has no idea what a research scientist really means, this makes Lex look like a trusted academic voice giving weight and credibility to his opinions. In fact, back in 2023, scholar-scientist Nassim Nicholas Taleb publicly called him out for this very reason. Nassim accused Lex of using the MIT name as bait to attract high-profile guests to his podcast, even though the podcast has never had any official connection with the university whatsoever. But as deceptive as his academic branding may be, it's only a fraction of a much bigger, far more troubling problem. Even if we accept him as a legit scientific researcher, which he insists that he is.
But like I said, my main focus has always been on research. I published many peer-reviewed papers that you can see in my Google Scholar profile.
His work still doesn't do much to help the case either, and there's no better example of this than the paper he published in 2019. It attracted a lot of attention, but for all the wrong reasons. Put simply, in it, Lex's findings suggested that AI-assisted driving was significantly safer than human drivers. On the surface, these results sounded groundbreaking. But things quickly fell apart the second other experts went through his research, describing it as, quote, deeply flawed and, quote, misleading to the point of negligence. And just like many of Lex's previous papers, this one was never peer-reviewed by other researchers before publication. But instead of addressing this criticism, Lex tried to hide it under the rug, and even went as far as blocking AI researchers who were telling him to submit the study for a proper peer review. However, the most suspicious thing about this paper was its timing, as it just so happened to be published exactly when Tesla was under fire for fatal crashes involving its self-driving technology. The company was fighting a class action lawsuit at the time, and in the middle of this storm, Lex's paper conveniently appeared in mainstream media, painting Tesla's system as safer than human drivers and offering exactly the kind of academic proof Elon Musk needed to save his company's reputation. But maybe sincerity and integrity were never Lex's goals to begin with, since according to his former colleagues at MIT's Age Lab, Lex was never motivated by science. Instead, he wanted to get famous, and his controversial 2019 paper helped him achieve just that. Remember the Elon Musk interview that put him on the map? Well, he received an invite to Tesla headquarters and was able to meet Elon Musk in person just weeks after publishing this paper. And not long after that, Elon appeared on Lex's podcast, shooting him into the mainstream with a single 30-minute upload. This, combined with an earlier appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, kickstarted his rise to fame. He went from a little-known researcher to the host of one of the most popular podcasts on the planet practically overnight, all thanks to Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, and he's been clinging to the two ever since, from obsessively bringing up Elon in his conversations.
Elon Musk, Elon Musk, Elon is Elon Musk.
Often mentioning him up in completely unrelated conversations.
What'd you think about Elon as an engineering leader? Having to experience him in the most chaotic of spaces, I would say. What do you admire in the name of love about Elon Musk?
To sucking up to Rogan in the cringiest way possible.
Call me Brian Callahan. In this cruel world, there is a man you should listen to as you journey on through life. His name is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan. shoulders for days, and a really wide bag.
But even with all of this, many people still find his rise to the top far too convenient to be something organic. To them, Lex doesn't even have the appeal that you'd expect from the host of one of the biggest podcasts in the world. He rarely adds anything meaningful to the conversations, and even when he does, it's rarely anything interesting.
Hopefully surf, if the waves are good.
Surf for,
How good are the waves?
let's say they're good. This is a perfect day. This is a perfect waves. Why do you surf?
It's fun.
Okay, this is fun. Okay, man and nature, which is like what surfing is the ultimate, is the power of the infinite power of the ocean versus a little silly looking man on a board.
You could say it's the infinite power of the ocean versus a silly looking man on a board, or you could say it's fun.
He brings on pretty intelligent people, but I have no idea how he became as big as he is currently with absolutely zero charisma or energy. I will never understand why anyone listens to Lex Fridman. Zero personality, zero charisma, poor interviewer, never says anything insightful, his popularity baffles me. But despite his lackluster interviewing skills, Lex consistently lands some of the most high-profile names across tech, politics, and culture. In fact, some of these guests haven't even appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast yet.
Why are you doing it? You know what I mean? Like, why this guy who works in AI just decides he's going to start a podcast. The podcast becomes very successful, and all of a sudden he's like, I'd like to talk to everybody. I'd like to go over and talk to Zelensky and talk to Putin, and everybody's like, why you? What the fuck are you doing?
When you line it all up, the lack of charisma, the absence of strong interviewing ability, and the almost suspiciously stacked guest list, the pieces don't really add up. Now, some believe that he's just an industry plant, but for others, even that doesn't explain everything. A sentiment that has given rise to one of the craziest theories surrounding an online creator, according to which Lex isn't a scientist or a podcast host, he's a straight-up spy or sleeper agent for the elites, with accusations like, this dude is the hybrid child of Mossad and some unlisted officers in Arlington. Lex gives sleeper agent a whole new meaning, and while these claims are a bit absurd, they do offer an explanation for his political views, since despite him presenting himself as a humble centrist, who respects and listens to both sides, and of course has an undying amount of love for everyone, Lex has been exposed over and over again for having a very clear political bias. Not only are most of his guests like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, and Douglas Murray right-leaning, the way he engages with these guests is also quite telling. Like when he interviewed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and failed to bring up a single meaningful question on Gaza, on peace, or the ongoing crisis in that region. On the other hand, when he interviewed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and turned it into a glazing session for Putin,
I once again have a dream that even if there's hate, that you sit down with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and you find a way to peace.
Throughout the episode, he kept implying that Vladimir Putin was ready for peace, at one point even suggesting that Ukrainians should just forgive Putin for invading their country.
This is not a small compromise, and to forgive him will not be a small compromise.
To forgive, no one will forgive. This is absolutely impossible to forgive him. We cannot get into the head and soul of a person who lost their family. Nobody never will accept this. Absolutely impossible.
With all this in mind, it's hard to see Lex as the neutral truth seeker he claims to be. Instead, he comes off as nothing more than a propaganda vessel, as his viewers put it, is a masterclass at selling polite propaganda to people, spread lies, or equivocate horrible people using the veneer of polite intellectual discussion. And the Zelensky interview was so infuriating. I lost all respect for him after that. And it's not just in geopolitics. Even when in the tech space, Lex's podcast comes off as a safe haven where CEOs and billionaires can say whatever they want without fear of pushback, hard questions, or accountability of any kind. And in the end, that's what makes Lex Fridman so dangerous. Not that he's simply biased or unqualified or uncharismatic, but that his entire career is built on a foundation of lies and deception. So to answer the question we posed in the beginning, is Lex Fridman a fraud? Probably, but will this revelation impact his reach and influence? Seems unlikely. As long as he's the only one securing interviews with the people running the world, viewers have no choice but to tune in.